our visitors that would have never come into this building had the visitor center not been here. And that's an additional 4,500 people that were exposed to our mission and what we have here. And over and over and over again, what we heard is, this is so great, we didn't know that this existed. And so as we move forward, we're looking to partner with the visitor center in terms of our volunteers, using their volunteers to advance our mission and our volunteers to help accomplish some of the work for the visitor center. Through our ISEA programming for the Inland Seas building, we had an additional 271 participants come here for a specific program, and that was the Family Science Day and seminar series Gloria mentioned, some workshops here with partners and community groups. Also here in the Education Center, just some highlights. We got a new aquarium set up, which is really great. Just yesterday, Frank planted some plants, some aquatic plants that we ordered, and we also have some largemouth bass in the basement, which is pretty exciting. And over in our turtle tank, there was a local student in Traverse City who couldn't take care of his pet turtle anymore, and so he donated it to us, and now Painter is his name. Painter's here with us and can outreach to everybody. We're also looking at getting a standard invasive species program developed. We'll get phone calls a lot of times from those different community groups asking, can you do a presentation for us? And instead of customizing a program every time someone calls, what we're looking to have is just a standard, here's a program, general introduction to invasive species in the Great Lakes. This is what we have to offer you. And hopefully, eventually build from that and have more programs to offer, but using this as a starting block. Down in the boat shop, we had 9 participants who were a part of the Woodstrip Canoe Building Program, and we had 10 students participate in the Optimus Pram program, and they built 2 Optimus Prams. For our shipboard programming, in 2014 we went to all of these different ports, and the plan for 2015 is to return to most of those ports. We're able to offer programming in those areas, introduce new people to what we have to offer, and let them know what we've got here in Suttons Bay as well. For the school ship program, here in Suttons Bay and Traverse City together, we did 133 school ship programs throughout the season, and it impacted more than 3,500 students, which is amazing in and of itself. And then it's equally amazing that 93% of our teachers on the evaluations said that their students saw an increased interest in science and an increased interest or concern for the Great Lakes, which tells us that we're really doing something right with our programming. In the summer, we have some different program offerings. We had some of our overnight programs, the half-day discovery sales. That also includes a workshop. That's where the additional number comes from, the 44. And then some miscellaneous programs, additional workshops, things where we modified our existing program. But I want to point out the dockside tours. Being a part of all of these different events in Charlevoix and the part of the Cherry Festival, that provided us with additional opportunities to do dockside tours, and people who may not on a whim sign up for a 3-hour sail with us can come out, do a quick walkthrough for 10 minutes, learn about what we do, what our mission is, leave with some information, and then hopefully return to us later in the summer or the next summer when they're up again to participate in our program. So it's a great sort of first touch to those people. For the Young Men, Young Women in Science program, we had 3 programs and had 23 people participate in our overnight program. We did one in Escanaba, Young Women in Science, and then 2 here in Grand Traverse Bay, 1 in Suttons Bay and 1 in Traverse City. Out of our evaluation, what we learned is everybody overall had a greater sense of Great Lakes stewardship after their program. All right, so this is where the number came from that Al was asking about. We had 120 active volunteers in 2014, and together those people contributed over 11,000 hours. All of our programming, our summer festival, all the committees, meetings, everything that goes into implementing our programming, 11,000 hours of just volunteer time, which is in and of itself amazing. If we break it out, 86 hours was how many hours the average volunteer contributed to the organization, which is amazing to me. What it also means is that that's how we're able to get all of this done. The 257 educational programs that we had this year would not have happened without you guys. And so our ultimate destination for our volunteers is to be able to provide experiential education programming by making sure our volunteers feel comfortable and well equipped to implement this programming. So what this is going to look like for our end is Inland Seas needs to update our volunteer training. And so what we're going to do is we're going to increase the accessibility. In addition to our winter, spring training sessions, we want to make this training available online. So what we're going to do is have recorded sessions, record those shoreside training sessions, record the stations happening on the ship, make the manuals and additional resources available online. So when someone calls in July, when all of us are crazy busy, we can direct them to the website, say, check us out, look at this stuff, and then call and schedule a time to come out on the ship and observe. And so that's where this on-the-job training comes in, is hearing from our volunteers year after year that the shoreside training is great, but it does nothing to help you understand the logistics of the program. So using that to build content understanding and using the on-the-job training to help with the logistical understanding of what happens. What it also means, as Fred has said, is we need to grow our volunteer base. If we want to move from 133 schoolship programs to 150 schoolship programs, we need more volunteers. This is going to make sure that when you're on the ship, we have enough volunteers that all the stations have a volunteer. So you don't all of a sudden have 10 kids in your group. That's a hard group to teach on the ship. It also is going to make sure that we don't burn out our volunteers. That's something we heard a lot this year, is that those phone calls every week begging to come out on the ship. We want to limit those phone calls. We want to call when we really have an emergency instead of making everything an emergency. And so by growing this volunteer base, we're going to be able to accomplish that. And what that's going to require is increasing our awareness about our opportunities. Some of the things we're doing now is holding open houses. We had an open house a couple of weeks ago, I think, on the 14th. We had 22 new volunteers show up. They're really excited about the program. I'm already getting applications turned in. And these people want to get involved now. And so these folks are signing up to be in the boat shop, helping here in the office, already getting started with some of the school ship material. And those are the folks that are going to carry through, hopefully, for the year. We're also going to do another open house on March 11th to kind of kick off our school ship instructor training session. And so part of, to tie in with what Fred mentioned, is this marketing. We're going to use marketing to also recruit our volunteers. When we get that message out, people are going to hear about us. They're going to know. They'll come, learn a little bit, and then have an opportunity to talk with some veterans and continue to do it.
All right, so as most of you know, part of the school ship program is collecting information about the Bay. So this next section is kind of an overview of what we saw in 2014. If you are familiar with this graph, this is our Secchi disc depth graph of Grand Traverse Bay. And we've added the 2014 data point. And if you haven't seen this before, a Secchi disc measures the water clarity. Increasing depth means increase in clarity. And the 2014 falls right in the same trend as we see a slight increase in water clarity over the years. And I want to point out this is for Grand Traverse Bay, and we're hoping to add Sutton's Bay to have a separate graph so you can have kind of that visual of both locations and see how they're changing. And what we have here is the average air temperature of Sutton's Bay. In the orange, we have the 2014 average, and in the blue is the historical average, and this is all recorded by the students on the ship. And if you look from May through October, and almost every single month, the average of last year was quite a bit cooler than the historical average in the blue. But I want to point out that the only exception to this is in August. The 2014 average was actually recorded quite a bit higher than the historical average, which seemed a little out of place considering the other months. And just to kind of investigate this a little bit further, this black line represents the average recorded high of the day according to AccuWeather. And you'll notice that most of the time the average high is higher than what we recorded on the ship, which you would expect since we might not record during the highest temperature of the day. We're on the water. It's expected to be cooler anyways. But in August, our recorded temperature on the ship was actually a little bit higher than the average high of the day. And I think a lot of the volunteers, you're familiar with kind of the thermometer situation. There is some, especially in August, it seemed like there was kind of some equipment problems, but we're hoping to remedy that with digital thermometers this year and keep going forward with that. And this is our surface water temperature in Suttons Bay, and you'll see in every single month the 2014 average was quite a bit cooler, especially in the early months compared to our historical average. And a possible explanation for that is the cold and really, really long winter that we had last year, and that's what we see right here. And here we have the bottom water temperature, and to clarify what this means, it's not truly the bottom water, it is the depth at what we collected. So that's typically probably between 30 to 60 feet, and kind of the same kind of trend up until October. We saw the bottom water temperature, or at depth temperature, in 2014 was a little bit cooler than the historical average. And this last temperature graph right here is both water temperature, it's our surface water compared to our bottom water. And we see the trend that we would expect to see, surface water being a little bit warmer, especially there in the late summer, and as fall approaches, the at depth water actually is a little bit warmer, pretty similar to the surface water. So, and here's some fish data that Jeannie will talk about.
Right, so a lot of you have seen our pie charts of the fish over time. And what we did is went back a little bit further in time. It's great to see what's happening now, but we can interpret what's happening now better if we know what used to happen. So this goes back to 1998, and it's fun for me to see that every single year is different. It's a little bit different fish collection each year, which lines up really well with other organizations that collect this kind of information. It is a little different every year, so that's reassuring. And then also that we have very good diversity, so there's quite a good number of species, and each one is represented more or less equally. So that's really good to see. All right, so this is what you already know. This is what's happening now. So over the last 9 years, the round goby has come in, and this blue represents the round goby. Yeah, and so one thing to notice is that once you get to really about 2008, every single one is the same. We see the same colors every single year, so we're not getting that same shifting of composition over time. And then these are the actual percentages of the goby. So in 2014, the largest percentage of round goby that we've ever gotten, which is definitely not what we want to see. So just to review, so you can see the trend that's happened, over this past 50 years. This is the actual numbers, because we were finding the same thing. So, the percentage is helpful, but the actual number is information we also need. So this shows the average number of fish per trawl. So in 1998, we had about 15 fish on average every time we did a trawl. In 2013, we had about 135 fish every time we did a trawl. And so, but what's interesting in 2014 is that it's not very many fish. It's dropped tremendously since 2013.
Yeah, look at that.
And 91% of a smaller number means that we have even fewer fish that aren't gobies. So just to make that a little bit more clear, we graphed the same information with the goby absent altogether. So in 2014, it shows that the smallest number of non-goby fish ever caught.
Yeah, significantly.
Yeah,
smaller.
it's a lot smaller than any of the other bars before that. So we have this cold winter to blame, of course, but there could be all kinds of other dynamics going on. And I think for me, this just emphasizes the deep importance of the data gathering that we're doing. We need to know what's going to happen
This
next.
just
We can't
shows,
stop. Exactly what's happening for individual species. So we can look at individuals and what's happening with them. And that's helping us get a better sense of relationships between the different fish species that are out there. So the round goby taking off, the rock bass also taking off. We didn't really see any rock bass until the round goby appeared. Relationship? Possibly. We do know that rock bass eat round goby, so that's probably what's happening there. And then we have the opposite pattern for the Johnny Darter and the mottled sculpin, which I think a lot of you are aware of. So there's definitely fierce competition with the round goby for both of these species, but there could also be some other factors. The round goby is not the only additional species to the bay. There are other species, especially those mussels, that are having a big impact on the ecosystem.
So the next
as well.
couple slides kind of reflect where we would like to go with all of the data that we're collecting. So one of the big ultimate destination is to increase that research aspect for inland seas. And what's pretty cool is, in addition to the fish and the temperature data, we've also been collecting a ton of other things. So plankton, sediment grabs, the type of organisms that live at the bottom of the lake, water quality. There's a number of things that we're collecting that you see outside of here, and we've been doing it for 25 years. So we have this huge mountain of information. We just need to share it with everybody else, because that's something that's really special that we have that no one else has. But the large amount of information is kind of a gift and it's a curse, because the first step is to just organize all of that data. For this task is to create kind of this data management system. So schoolship is not going to stop, so that information coming in is also not going to stop either. So before we just keep kind of piling more and more on top, we want to create a way that we can collect the information in usable ways. So from a volunteer perspective, that might be entering data straight into a computer on deck. And that Excel sheet might have graphs that are readily created so that we have a constant, up-to-date kind of visual or idea of what's happening in the lake, instead of having to dive back in and kind of recreate the wheel every single time. And once that system and kind of the protocols are in place, we can go back and then easily organize or organize what we have for the past 25 years. So the final destination would be a science database that is consistent from year to year. So what we collected in 1990 would be laid out in the exact same way or a similar way to what we collected this year. Easily manageable, functional, and maintainable. And from a volunteer perspective, on your end, hopefully you guys would have more learning materials to teach with. So more graphs, maybe a monthly breakdown of the fish and the plankton and everything like that. So more teaching materials.
So that's where we're going with our data. And we have a course to follow for education as well. And so overall, this isn't changing, but we want to just really emphasize this part, that we want to make sure our programs are hands-on and discovery focused. So the excitement of discovery is happening with the students in the moment. It's coming from them. We want them to feel like they're adventurers and discoverers out there on the bay. To get us to that point, we did some updates of our current traditional schoolship program, and we're calling this program the Next Gen Schoolship Program. This next generation of students, this next generation of educational model. And we're also going to include the next generation science standards, which is just like the most recent version of best practices for teaching science in schools. And at the moment, Michigan has not adopted the next generation science standards, but there's every expectation that that will happen. So teachers and schools are already looking at that. They're starting to integrate it already. Some schools have adopted it for themselves. So our program will be connected to these next generation science standards. But in addition, we want to really emphasize those aspects of our program that make it amazing. And one of those is that we have small group instruction. So the fact that we have one teacher and 5 students is such a special situation. And we want that to happen as much as possible on the ship. So our Next Gen program makes that happen for almost the entire program, from the beginning of sampling through analysis, and then even at the very end in our stewardship conversations. So we're having conversations with students about what it is the program means to them, what they want to do with this information, what questions they have, how they're connecting to the lake. So we want to have those conversations to find out, where are they, what are they thinking, let them process it, rather than forcing information down their throats, like make sure you turn off your water and don't throw anything in the lake. Those kinds of things, don't necessarily change behavior, but having people have ownership over it can be really helpful.
Can we just emphasize too that this is another program option? This
Yeah.
is not the school ship model. This is going to be the Next Gen school ship. So there'll be
The next thing, the other big education thing we're looking at is making sure we have a really strong stewardship message in all of our programming and then in individual programs as well. We know that if you are located here, you are part of the stewardship of this area. You can't opt out. It's not a choice. You're part of it. But the choice is what you're going to do with that. And we want to help our participants have the skills and knowledge they need in order to be good stewards. Because stewardship is a lifestyle. It's an attitude. It's not an activity. And we need to help our students have the skills that they need to be good stewards, which means the right kind of knowledge. It means the ability to solve problems. It means the ability to work with other people, to take disparate pieces of information and make a decision about what the right course of action is. And our programming can provide those kinds of opportunities. We want to make sure our students feel empowered so that they feel comfortable in nature. They feel relaxed there. They know what to do there. We want them to feel like they have the information that other people need. So our stewardship programming is something we're really focusing on for this next year or two to make sure that's really strong. And then we have a couple of new programs in addition to what you've already seen. This is what I'm really excited about. We are creating a program for our older students. I've heard this time and time again in the few months I've been here. Teachers want something more advanced for their high school groups, and so that's what we're creating. So we've collected a group of 11 high school teachers, and I'm going to be meeting with them for the first time on Tuesday. And together with those teachers and then several other education experts in the region, we're going to create a program that's specifically for their students. So it'll be designed by them, for them, and then those students will get to sail on our vessel with this program in the spring and the fall. So we're providing scholarship opportunities for that. These programs, the program I expect will be research focused. This is what teachers want. They want a real science experience for their class. So while they're out on the boat, they'll be collecting data, they'll be analyzing it, they'll probably be designing their own study, and then they'll have access to all of the data that we have here. So they'll be able to create a really powerful, real life science experience for their students. And then the next big thing happening this year is microplastics. So you probably know that we've been working with that, and we're going to continue. So starting this spring, we'll be doing microplastic sales with our school group. That'll be part of our Next Gen Science, Next Gen School Ship program. So we'll be collecting microplastic data in the spring. We're going to be creating a program this summer that will continue that microplastics collection. So that'll probably be a 2-hour program that'll be focused on microplastics, but we'll still include some of that food web stuff that we're doing already because they connect. And then we'll continue that data collection into the fall with our Next Gen program again. So we'll end up with a series of collections looking at microplastics from May through October. No one has that data. No one knows how microplastic concentrations change seasonally. So this is something that we will be able to contribute to the world, really. It's pretty exciting.
year of renewal and growth, and you guys came to this presentation, so we want to thank you and give you just a little bit more of a sneak peek of some of the things that we're looking at. Probably the most exciting thing is I alluded to the fact that we're building this new website. This should be ready hopefully in April, and we're going to have a new look and a feel to our website. This is not necessarily it, but I wanted to show you kind of some of the things we're playing with. First and foremost, it's this idea of having a good mobile website that's accessible via mobile technology and provides folks the opportunity to really see what we do. we want to make sure we communicate the right focus for folks. We want to communicate this idea of fun and engagement and adventure. We have to walk a delicate line, I think, between, we're a strong educational organization. Education is our focus, but we also want to make sure that we don't scare people away with that focus, that they're going to understand that, the experience that they have with us is something that's fun, engaging, educational, but they're going to enjoy it. We don't want to. We have had. I will tell you, there are some adults that are afraid to come with their kids because they're afraid. They just don't feel like dealing with the educational half of it. Well, that impacts our mission, right? We're not able to impact as many people, so we've got to find a way to make sure that we have that component there. So our website hopefully is going to be good, fun, clean, engaging, and so we really want to focus on this stewardship component. This is the mission of the organization, so a lot of what we're trying to do is hit on that. So we're playing with some other logo designs and things. So this is one of the ideas I want to throw out here. This might not be it, but we wanted to just start people thinking about, a new concept or a new description. So I'm going to show this to you. We already had some good advice from people like, maybe these would be better as the canoe paddles or something along those lines, or, any type of ideas. But I want to show you why that type of idea came into play when we start thinking about marketing some of these programs. The idea is we'd really like to make sure we have a good, consistent marketing approach to what we do. And this would be one way to do that. If you play around with things like having the IS here and representing Inland Seas is protecting the Great Lakes through education, our tagline. We focus on the concept of stewardship along those lines. But if we wanted to really focus on marketing our young people in science program, where our main emphasis with that program is engaging the next generation of science standards, we can quickly just change out one little component of that logo so the feeling stays the same. But now we have Inland Seas is with a microscope creating the next generation of Great Lakes scientists. Things along those lines where we could, come up with dozens of those types of little images that we could use in marketing campaigns or within our website to show the different components of the way we fulfill our mission. So just playing around with ideas. We'd love to hear your thoughts or ideas. And as I said, that's kind of a timely issue as we want to really have this all finalized for a reveal. April is kind of the deadline. We'd be really lucky if we get things happening, mid-March.
My sister is fantastic with graphics.
So, last point, I guess I would just say, is coming back to the beginning. What we do is extremely important. We want to ensure that this organization is here for the long haul, and we're asking for your help with this in all aspects of it. If it's just simply from this standpoint of saying, help us formulate this vision. These are ideas. These are thoughts we have. These are things we've talked a lot about. Our board is building this strategic plan right now. So if you've got some thoughts, if you've got some ideas, let's have a social gathering here and we can talk about some of those things. But again, if you're more comfortable doing that one-on-one, please seek me out, seek a staff member, a board member, whoever you're more comfortable with, and let's get that out there so together we can build this future for Inland Seas. So thanks.